Actually, last year, 2017, was a very transformational year for me because I lost 100 pounds. So I, thank you. So I literally went through a physical transformation at a period of time where, it wasn't that things were going awry or anything like that. I think sometimes people feel like you have to transform when things are getting bad, but I think that there's opportunities to transform when things are stagnant as well. And I think that, when the time is right, you can, I would say that I wouldn't say that, it's so hard to really put this into words, but it's, not that I was in like a low place by any means, but it was just the right frame of mind to make massive change happen. And once you reach that, sometimes people reach it by getting extremely low. And then sometimes people reach it just for having like that epiphany sort of like aha moment. So that was definitely how it was for me. And yeah, and the funny thing is I've talked to a lot of people that have told me that last year was a year that was very transformational for them as well. And I actually found out in the fall, if you're into some sort of like metaphysical sort of other things, which I am, last year was a universal year one. So apparently there is a cycle. I think it's like maybe it's 7 years, and last year was year number one. So that may play into things that like people restarted a lot of things in their life in 2017 because it was the year to do it. So definitely that was a situation that I was in. And if that energy was in the air, then I took advantage of it. The last few years, I've been what I call a productivity guru. I've been really focused against how to help people plan and organize their lives, because this is a topic, productivity, that I don't see really being evaluated in any traditional institutional sort of ways. When you go to school, you don't grow up learning how to, do a project plan, right, to reach your goals. I mean, I believe that there's a lot of organizational and productivity related tips that we pick up along the way as students, because if you want to be a successful student, you need to know what your homework is, when you have the papers done by, what day the test is, and you need to like block out time to study and things like that. But I think that the overall conversation of productivity so far in the world has belonged to the personal development realm. And I think that's a wonderful place for it to be. But I really think that productivity in general is something that really affects everybody. You don't have to be someone who is trying to, constantly, reevaluate their life and push their life forward. A lot of people just go with the flow in life. And that doesn't mean that they don't need the skills and the information that productivity have to offer. So for the last few years, this is something that I've been interested in teaching people. That's been like my goal, is to teach people this, because I'm someone who has been involved and interested in productivity since I was in high school. I was like that girl in high school that, I read Getting Things Done when I was like 14. I had a copy of 7 Habits. I had a copy of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey on my Palm Pilot in high school. That's how old I am. I mean, I was really into this conversation of productivity. And the reason why I tell people is because I was very naturally lazy. Like, I am a very naturally lazy person. But I'm also someone who believes that there are hacks, right? There are hacks within life. Everyone's like into the life hacks. And it's true. I think there are these hacks and principles that kind of guide productivity that you really don't have to be executing all the time in order to be actually achieving things. I think I'm an amazing example of someone who really doesn't feel like I do very much, but almost the way a grandmaster in chess could win a chess match in just a few strategic moves. I feel like if we look at our life and we plan out what those few strategic moves are going to be, it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, and you're going to be able to put your time and effort that's left over into, going deeper or, creating other things that you want to have and do in your life. So I think this is a message that's really important for everybody, specifically women. Women tend to wear the most hats in this society of ours, having to be the moms and the caretakers and, the volunteers, not to discount men in any way, shape, or form, but I think we all know many instances of women in our lives that are wearing way too many hats and putting themselves, unfortunately, last. So I really am spreading this message in hopes to giving women more power to put themselves first and to be an example for women to say, hey, I'm someone who doesn't follow the rules. I'm definitely not keeping up with the Joneses. And guess what? Like, I'm not ostracized from society because I put boundaries on my time and energy. And so that's really the message, I guess, in a nutshell. But where I'm pretty much going, the direction I'm going with this idea of being an alchemist, because that's really what I decided. I had another epiphany this year that I am an alchemist. I'm someone who is interested in the transmutation of energy into matter. And I help people bring things from 5D into 3D. And there is, in essence, to me, that I see now, having studied productivity for such a long time, that there is a masculine and a feminine side to productivity. There is an executing side, and then there is a letting the universe and other people give to you side. And I think that if you're able to use both of those, you're going to end up executing less and getting more things done and having better results and getting to your ends faster, because you're following the natural flow of what I would say is the universe in general. Honestly, the biggest thing that I think having that mindset from being a young age really did, more than anything, is that I had a very powerful, and looking back, like, look at the moment, you don't know, but looking back, you're like, oh, darn, I had a very powerful way of manifesting, like a very powerful way of manifesting. And I actually, really think that as I look at my life, although I've had struggles, I really feel like, because my mind was always on this part of, I'm going to protect my time, I'm going to protect my energy, that the universe actually came in and gave me a whole bunch of stuff, because I was literally like refusing to get too involved with things, but I knew what I wanted the outcome to be. So I think that, if anyone, who knows like the basics of law of attraction or visualization knows, is that when you see the end result and you live in that moment and live in that feeling, that's when things are going to be called to you. And maybe we could call it having incredibly overactive imagination. Sure. But I really refused to believe what I was seeing or the results that I was getting in my life. I would project what it is that I wanted. And something that I was really good at was asking other people for help, and asking people. Yeah, it is, because, and this is something that goes into that masculine and feminine. You just talked about in the, you were reading out the Think and Grow Rich, and men using their sex energy, right, in order to execute, in order to act, whereas women will use their energy in order to receive. So I guess I had been really good at that for a while. And something I was also very good at was making a plan. So that was where the productivity stuff came in, right? Like David Allen and Getting Things Done talks about having context lists and essentially batching your work so that you're doing a whole bunch of stuff that's relevant at one time instead of hip hopping around, which is what, if you watch most people work, that's what they're doing. They run from fire to fire. They're like, oh, this is the next most important thing to do. And even if they have a whole to-do list for the day, something could just pop out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden they're running after that fire. So I was someone who was very into, okay, we're making a to-do list. We're keeping it really simple and we're going to go after it. So I, had my own like sort of method. And I was definitely someone who was using project planning through, high school and college and into, my working career, and using it to my advantage, where it would, I would be able to use the time hacks, because there are time hacks within productivity where you can get more things done in less time with less energy. But in no way do I believe you should be using that time hack, idea to do a whole week's worth of work in one day. Like, that's not acceptable to me. Like, the idea that we should be using productivity to do more things, I'm like, no. We should be using productivity and what we know of productivity to do less things, but doing more of the right moves, making more of the strategic moves that are actually going to cause the overall domino effect that's going to give you what you want. So, to be completely honest, I'm not someone who doesn't believe that you can't get a week's worth of results done in a day. I think you can. I think the issue is that you have to be very clear on what the results are that you're looking for, and understand something that is a basic productivity principle called the Pareto principle, which goes into this greater conversation of why I want you guys to execute less. I want you to do less things in order to get to what you want more. The Pareto principle is also known as the 80-20 rule. A lot of people have already heard this, where 80% of your net result, the outcome that you're going to get, actually only comes from 20% of the things that you do. So if only 20% of the things on your project plan or on your to-do list are going to give you that 80% of what your end goal is. Why the heck are you wasting time like even thinking about or keeping those other 80% of things on your to-do list until you've gotten that 20% done? So I think that with me, and I've really tested this in my business as well, is that, I'm definitely someone who, when I started my business, started being an online entrepreneur, I really felt like I needed to know all the things and I needed to try to do all the things. And it's like, wait, this was a technique I need to use. I need to use this and I need to integrate that. Like I'm some sort of like 8-armed octopus who's like grabbing all the things at once. But the truth is that when I would boil everything down, what was when I looked at really where the results were coming from, where the vast majority of my income was coming from one of my videos a week. Why was I doing multiple videos? Why was I doing all of these blog posts? Like, why was I putting all this effort in creating new products when I had products that were already selling? And if I spent less time developing new and more time just promoting things I already had, I could be saving myself time and energy. But it's really all about being incredibly clear about what the result is that your week's worth of effort produces and where it comes from. Because I guarantee you that 80%, because it's an average here, 80% of what you're doing every week is not giving you the results. It really isn't affecting much. And really the way that I look at the 80-20 rule is that there is that 20% that gives you 80%. And the way I would prefer people to do, instead of making one big to-do list and thinking I got to do everything on this list in order to have this project complete, is that identify first and foremost what those 20% of tasks are that are going to give you that biggest result. Like what is it that if you could only do 20% of the actions on your list, which ones would actually get you that minimum viable product or minimum viable result? And then structure the rest of your to-dos into 2 extra lists. One list that would be like really great things to have in there as well, right? Really great extras that could be included that would make the result even better. And then like a wish list of like, if I had time and I could add extra icing on the cake, what would the absolute things that are the least important for me to focus on now, but could put a little extra pizzazz on top? What could be the cherry on top? What could be the icing? That needs to be a separate list that you focus on later, because really having your focus on the full list, all it's going to do is cause overwhelm, so that you're like, oh, there's all these things I have to do. And you automatically get overwhelmed because you think all of the tasks are equally as important, and they're not. There are 20% of items on that list that are the most important. They're the ones that are really tipping the scale. So you need to find those first. And another issue that I see people have when they have, they think they have to do all of the things, right, is number one, you're not going to be able to go deep on those things. You're going to be at a shallow surface level. So think about how much better your work could be. And I'll give a really generic example for entrepreneurs, right? You have to write an email to your list every week, right? You do a weekly email list. How much, maybe most of us think of that as a to-do and you're like, okay, just really quickly, just pounding something out. But if you had more time, if you had twice the amount of time to spend on that email than you already have on your day or in your week, how much more could you think about strategically what you're writing to affect the results that you want? Right? Because I think that when we think about doing all the things and they're all equal, we rush through to get everything done. But that's really not giving you the space, like the mental space and the time to process and go deep. And, you were talking about earlier with the book, the zone of genius, right? I think when you have the ability, when you have space around you to really go deep and give yourself time to think about something, that's when you have the most creative ideas. Like if I told you you needed to write an email to your list and I wanted you to think about that email all week, I bet you would think about a whole bunch of different creative ideas for what you could do with that email. If you had the whole week to write it and that was the only thing you had to do, I bet you by the end of the week when you write that email is amazing. Like that is like word from the heavens sort of email. You know what I mean? Where you're really going to be thinking about all the people that email is going to and what they're going through and what they need to hear from you. So you're really able to go deeper when you cut out the 80% of extra that is not as essential. And then something else that I think ends up happening too when you make that space is you have space to put out intention. into the world, right? That this is something I'm working on that's very important to me. And think about someone who is really overwhelmed with things to do and they don't really have that space in their life. They're carrying this really big burden and they don't have time. They don't have time to worry about changing their mindset. Like they don't have time to focus on their thoughts and what their thoughts and the way they're speaking is impacting their results because they're so overwhelmed and bogged down by this load they're carrying. And then when it comes to, this feminine part of productivity, which is the intention and the asking for support from the universe, think about being that really overwhelmed person and you've got like a friend or a coworker who goes, hey, you need some help? You're more likely when you're really overwhelmed to be like, no, stay away from me. I don't want you to take any of this load because if you do, you're going to hate me because it's so heavy. Like we refuse to even ask for help or accept help because we're like, this is a monster and I don't want to curse you with it. You know what I mean? We're not willing to let other people in because we haven't made space for them, one. And number two, we're coming out of this mindset of like, this horrible load I'm carrying is like killing me. And even though I would love to hand it to you, like my inner Sisyphus is saying, if you come near me, this like boulder is going to knock you over. So like, stay away. So it's just, I think that when you put the load down, right? When you put your load down, just walk away from for a second, like, stretch out, go get a massage. When you come back to the load and you intentionally pick up the 20% that's the most important, then you're able to really feel like you can manage the work. And you then have the space, 80% space here, 80% time that you can use to go deeper, that you can use to change your mindset, that you can use to see opportunities. Because when you're holding that load, you can't see opportunities. Even if an opportunity comes to you and you're really overwhelmed and like, this is the greatest opportunity in the world for you right now. When you're carrying that load, you're not going, oh yeah, let me add one more thing to it. You're going, no, sounds great, but no, I can't do it. Like I can't take any more on. So when you have the room and you have the space, because you've only focused on that 20% that gives you 80 result, then you have time to let things come in. Then you don't mind if someone comes in and says, hey, I'll help you with this part, and you're like, oh, yeah, you do have something good to add. And, this project isn't too overwhelming. Like I can definitely take your help. Well, I think when you're feeling really overwhelmed, ideally the thing would be to walk away, right? To walk away. I'm like, if you're overwhelmed, it's going to knock you out either way. You might as well just say, look, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm either going to keep trying to dig at this and it's just going to keep burying me, or I can take a step back and reset my mind frame. So I would say like, take a step back, even if it's only like 30 minutes to an hour. And like, if you could like sit and listen to some Zen music and like breathe, like put an eye mask on, like I keep an eye mask at my desk so that I can like put it on during the day. If I like feel like I need to like just close down, listen to some like chill music or like some, like the solfeggio frequency is like the 528, like that's supposed to put you in harmony with the universe. Pull out an aromatherapy thing and like start sniffing it, some lavender or something that's relaxing. And do not come back to your desk or come back to reality until you're like, where you feel that, everyone knows, you feel the, like the weight has been lifted. Like, yeah, there's still the nerves in your heart. Like, oh geez, I know what I'm walking back to, but I want you to physically release the fear, like, and the actual physical. And then I want you to come back. And the first thing I want you to do is make a list, do a brain dump is what we would call it, of everything you're holding on to in your head, all the things that have left to do, all of the ideas that are floating around in the head, everything. Like if it's work related, not work related, if it's like an idea for something you want to have for dinner, if it's something you need to run an errand for, I don't care. Everything needs to come out of your head and onto paper. This is like a getting things done David Allen thing, like doing the RAM dump is what they call it. Taking all of that information you're holding in your working memory and dropping it. Because our brains are not for storage. Our brains are RAM. That's the analogy I think that's made by David Allen is we are like RAM in a computer. It's active memory to remember things, but it's not meant for long-term storage.
And we're taught like from birth through education to be memory banks and storage banks and just remember these random facts and figures. And
school really stinks like that. They really shouldn't make you memorize things.
Didn't help us very much.
Just the right thing does it. What they really should be teaching us is like how to access the answers instead of memorizing everything.
Yeah, problem solving, moving resources, people, creating projects, all that kind of stuff. So it's dumping the memory because that's our brain.
Write it all down. And when I say write it all down, I don't mean pull out Evernote and make a list on your phone. I mean get a pen in your hand and a piece of paper, because that physical act of writing really they've been scientifically proven that it really helps.
Yes.
It is something, I'm sorry, I know we love technology and I love it too, but when you're overwhelmed and you have to write it all down, you have to be able to see it and write it down on a piece of paper, write it down on sticky notes if you want to, and have the sticky notes so you can organize them later, whatever you want to do. So I want you to write everything out, and then I want you to organize it, right? I want you to organize it by where things belong, where things make sense to be batched together. And then you're going to have these groups of lists, right? And the first thing I want you to do is decide, if you didn't have all the time to get all this work done, what things could be dropped off. Because let's be honest, when you are overwhelmed and overworked, you're not getting everything done. If you're that person who's running from fire to fire, you're not doing all your work anyway. Things are being dropped off and then only being picked up if the fire gets hot enough for it to warm your butt. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're feeling the pressure from it, you don't pick that back up normally. You let the work go, and that's it. But what we're trying to do here is intentionally let things go that we know we can let go. And a lot of people ask me, like, how do you know what you can let go? I'm like, you know what's not important, or you know what belongs to someone else, especially if you work in an organization and you've got other coworkers. You know what you can delegate. Like, you know what information you can give back. And something I will say is, if there's things you're not sure about, especially if you work in a group scenario where you've got like a normal job, go to your boss and say, look, I've got a lot of stuff and you handed me this project and I'm not sure I'm going to be the right person to do it now. Communicate with people who are relying on you, because a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times when people find out they've given you something and you can't handle it and you're not going to be able to do it to the best of your ability, they might actually just pick it back up and go, oh, okay, I didn't realize you were so overwhelmed. Most people are going to be nice. Think about that if it was you, and you gave someone else some work to do and then you found out that they're like literally like feeling like they're dying under the weight of a boulder. You'd be like, give that back to me. I wanted it done right. You know what I mean? Like, you'd be like, okay, so, people, if you communicate, you're able to get things off your list. So you're able to delegate or delete items, move them off of your plate. And then what I want you to have left is 20%, the 20% that you absolutely have to work on, and then go forth, work on it, actually do it. Make sure you're taking breaks. Make sure you feel like you're able to approach the work with ample amounts of energy, but, don't just pick up stuff and feel like once you've been relaxed for a little bit that you're going to pick up everything again. I want you to put boundaries on what your time and energy is going to be spent on. And so if that means you're going to have this is my list of the 20% minimum viable result. And then there's that list of if I actually get it done early, what would be the pieces that maybe I could pick from that could go on top, like interesting toppings, fine. But we want to make sure that you're actually completing that main 20% that actually is going to give you a result. So I think that's good enough. For now, if people are really feeling that overwhelmed, we don't need to get into too much, but, having that focus on what that 20% is and knowing that it means that every bit of effort that you put towards the result is going to actually matter. And a lot of times I think this is something that frustrates people and why their mindset goes the wrong way, is that when you're not operating under the, the assumption of the 80-20 rule, those 80% of things that are just extra, when you do spend time on them, you don't see results from them and it gets frustrating. Like, why am I even doing this? What's the point? Well, if you focused on the first bit, if you focused on the first bit that makes you the base of the cake, then that's going to give you, the basis from which other things, it may improve things by having some extras thrown on top. But if you don't have the base, if you don't have the foundation, clearly laid, everything else is going to feel superfluous, because without that base, it is superfluous. It doesn't belong to it. It's like trying to ice a not cupcake. Like you need the cupcake to put the icing on it, right?
Invisible, non-existent cupcake.
Yeah. And it's funny because cupcakes are actually an example that I use with my community a lot. When it comes to the 80-20 rule, it's actually a really wonderful way to think about this. And it's an analogy that I make especially to moms. What I say is, imagine you're a mom and you're overwhelmed or whatever, and your kid comes to you the day before or something and says, tomorrow I need a dozen cupcakes to go to school with me. There are 3 ways that you could approach this as a mom. You could be the mom that goes, oh shoot, runs out to the store, treats it like a fire drill, buys all the ingredients, comes home and makes these beautiful dozen cupcakes from scratch. Well, congratulations. You made a dozen cupcakes last minute, probably threw out all of your other plans for the day because it takes forever to make things from scratch. That's mom number 1. Yeah. Mom number 2 might go, okay, let me run out to the store later tonight and I'm going to pick up the instant bake mix and, the instant made icing. And she spends much less time putting together the cupcakes, and she has a dozen cupcakes for her kid in the morning. And then there's the third mom, who is personally me, who goes, okay, we'll swing by the grocery store on the way to school and I'll buy the dozen cupcakes.
Yeah.
Every example, the result is the same. In every example, you get a dozen cupcakes at the end of your effort, whatever it is. Are you going to be the mom that lets it be a fire drill and has to make them from scratch? Or are you going to be the mom that, okay, maybe takes a more reasonable approach. Okay, I'll go make them, save myself some money, but still putting a little bit of my time in there by buying the instant mix, it takes like maybe 20 minutes to make. Or are you the mom that's like, this is not affecting my life right now. I have priorities. I will go and I will spend a couple bucks and I will run into the grocery store and drop you off at school with them. Yeah. In every scenario, you fulfilled your minimum viable duty. How much extra BS you want to put into it is up to you.
I love it. So really it's about like, what's the outcome that we're looking for? That clarity is so important because you can't get clear on what the 20% is unless you know the outcome that you want to achieve.
Yeah,
so
you need to know what the cupcake is. You need to know what the cupcake is, what you need to deliver, what the deliverables need to be, the minimum deliverable. Like, what is a cupcake?
It could be the son. The son could like come to the mom. It's like, hey, I need something for school tomorrow. Mom's like, well, what do you need?
What do you need? Do you need chips or do I need to bake a cake? Do I need to make a feast for 50? Like, when you are not very clear on what the actual minimum deliverables are, the sky is the limit for how much time and effort we could put into that. That's like an open-ended issue, right? That's open-ended. So we need to be really specific about really what the minimum viable is in terms of what would constitute fulfilling that obligation. And then you have to ask yourself, who am I fulfilling this obligation for? That's another one that a lot of people just accept, right? Because there is a fourth mom in this scenario that goes, no, I'm not doing any of it. You know what I mean? And it's like, sorry, not a priority, right? Like, because to her, the school is not, or the mom, it could be a dad too, right? We're not just picking on here, but I'm saying usually the kid's going to the mom to bake the cookies, not the dad. Yes. So, unless you've got the dad who's the baker, So that's, that's based on what the mom's priority is the school bake fair even something I give 2 pennies about, if it's not, then fine. And guess what? She has the most protection over her boundaries, So it depends on who you want to be. Expectations, external expectations are very much something that overwhelms people in this day and age because we think we need to be doing everything for everyone in order to keep up with the Joneses, or else we're going to be ostracized from society because I didn't bring in a dozen cupcakes for my child. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what's going to happen. We all know that you're not going to be put to death for it. So, think about that in terms of, that's a really funny comical example, but if you take that principle and apply it to every time someone comes to you for something or anything that you really spend your time on, I bet you'd find, this person who's asking me for this help, I don't really feel like I need to help them. There's no benefit for me here. Or this project I'm looking at and I go, this project, I'm not the right person for this. Why are they handing this to me? There's so many times where we just accept expectations where we're not questioning them. Wow. And that's really the most important thing, I think, is at least to question everything.
So what kind of a question do we ask? Like, why would I do this? Is this in line with my priorities and my commitments? Is
this the best use of my time? Am I the best person to do this? I mean, there's probably a series of questions, really. Like, do I really own this? You know?
Yeah. Awesome. So we have dove into some really great stuff, practical. Everyone, like literally do this. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling exhausted, tired, like you're just running around everywhere, take the time to give yourself that space. Write down this data dump and then prioritize. Take the time to get clear on what are your priorities based on what are your objectives, what are your outcomes. If you're like looking for money, if you're creating money in your life right now, then maybe the actions are sales calls, are leads, strategy sessions, whatever it might be for you. But I love that we're going through this and breaking this down to the nitty gritty. And I want to kind of shift gears into how does the alchemy play into productivity. Tell us a little bit more about that and how we can access that power ourselves.
Okay, so I mean, the way that alchemy works into this is that, I mean, for me, when I look at the idea of setting a project plan to achieving an end result, because when I say masculine, it is action based. We've already kind of established with your reading of your chapter of the book, men take action, right? So this is masculine, and this hasn't anything to do with like gender and sex. It has to do with energy. The energy of masculine is action. So a woman could apply to this as well. So in that phase, I would say that if you are if someone who's trying to bring something to fruition, right? You're trying to make something happen. You've got a project plan model here. So step one is to actually understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. What is the goal? What is the end result we're trying to deliver? And then we've got the step two, where you're actually making like the to-do list. What are all the steps that would be necessary to make this thing happen? Step number three, phase number three would be actually taking action on those things. Because another part of, actually putting together a to-do list or a project plan, it's great to have the project plan there. If you're not actually doing any of it, you're not taking action. Okay, you're not going to get. You're not getting anywhere with that.
Right.
You have to start actually knocking things off. If that means you do 10 things a day, or if it means you do 2 things or 1 thing a day, make progress. However fast or slow it's fits into your life
consistently.
Yeah. And then what do you get at the end of that when the to-do list is done? Hopefully the thing has appeared. Woohoo! You got it. But if we take that and we move that into the feminine way of doing productivity, which is the passive way, the letting it come to you, this is where we're talking about things like law of attraction, law of vibration, principle of vibration, right? So what is the equivalent of setting that goal in a feminine? If you're talking about the masculine, would be to have that goal like outlined of what it is you're trying to achieve. In the feminine, it would be the visualizing. What is it that I want to happen in my life? Thinking about it in your head, what the result is going to look like, having it all mentally in your head. Then that phase of breaking it down into tasks, actually would equate to the feminine of getting yourself in the energy, like that physical energy of what every little piece would look like, right? And feeling what it would be like to, live in that mansion and have that business that, earns you, 7 figures, like what, thinking about like what you would do with all that money and how you'd feel about it. And then the actual step of doing that phase 3 of executing, that would be attributed, if we're like making it 1-for-1 for law of attraction, would be the frequency at which you put yourself in that feeling. So the frequency by which you think, like if you wake up every day and like you start your day with like a 15-minute meditation that's like, I have so much money. And when I have all this money, once it's here, I'm going to be spending it on this and that. And I'm going to have a great time. Like the more you think about it and live in that energy and practice the visualization, right? You're increasing the frequency by which you're seeing it. The same way that you could affect the frequency by doing things, you can make a goal happen for you quicker by, doing more things on the list that day. Same thing with thinking about it. Thinking about it, putting yourself in that vibration, the high vibe mindset. And then what is step number 4? It comes to you. It just arrives. And yes, I am someone who believes that things can just arrive to you by imagining them, right? I think that there is a wonderful way that you can merge both of them. I think that if you have intention and visualization mapped with a project plan, that's a real good way to get things done, like an amazing way. You might be waiting a little bit longer on the vibration side for things to come to you if you're just thinking. But if you're walking around talking about it, That's, if you're telling people, oh, hey, I'm rich.
Yeah.
I have a 7-figure business. I live in a mansion. Like, who knows? Money may just come to you that way,
Yes.
Which is wonderful. But, people often ask me, can't you just do the masculine side? No, because have you ever we all have met someone who's trying to do something and goes, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. I'm doing this right now because I have to, but I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Like, I don't believe this is going to work. This is a stupid waste of my time. Those people, even if they have like the most amazing and like they've got the exact 20% steps, they're going to mess them up. They'll find, because their energy is low vibe. Their energy is, this isn't going to work. They're projecting it. So you have to have the energy in the right place.
Both, yeah. With
it, you need both of them. It's like a yin and yang scenario. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I actually think that project planning works for a lot of people, because they'll come into it, come into a problem and think, oh, it's impossible for me to get this, that, or the other thing. But then when you sit down and you actually make a to-do list, like what would actually get you there? Oh, then they go, oh yeah, okay, I see it. I can see it now. They can see it. They can visualize it now because you've written down the steps, right? And yes, it might take a little bit of time and a lot of effort to actually get there, but you can see how you're going to get from 5D to 3D when you make that to-do list. And when I say 5D, I just mean like, well, the spirit dimension, right? The place where ideas exist before they've come into reality.
Yes.
Infinite
intelligence is how Napoleon Hill calls it. Infinite intelligence, like the ethereal, beyond time and space.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's beyond time and space. And you talked about my favorite example, like Henry Ford.
Yes.
In that Henry Ford, invented the automobile, right? The automobile was something that existed in the 5D. What does that mean? It wasn't something that already existed in time and space, in our space, our three-dimensional. So like our physical world, cars didn't exist before we came up with them. Right. And then cars were never going to be a function of time. It didn't matter how long we waited. Horses were not going to evolve into automobiles. So it was outside of time and space. It belongs to the fifth dimension, a place where ideas live, right? And so when you bring something from the 5D into the 3D, it's manifesting. Not all of us are manifesting brand new things. Not everything we're doing is necessarily in the 5D, but oftentimes the things that are the most complicated, the most difficult to achieve are from the 5D because we've never done it before. It's literally when you pave new ways.
Yeah.
That is taking from the 5D. And for many of us, a lot of the things that we want in our day-to-day lives are things that already exist, but they don't exist in our lives. So it's an element of both 5D and 3D. And I think that, it's a challenge for us to actually make it happen unless we've got the visualization and the execution of frequency working in to get our results. So
I love this. And one thing that comes up is like you're really into trusting the process and letting time kind of have its germination and nurturing phase. Have you ever felt like you wanted it to go faster, or were there ever phases in your life where you're like, this needs to happen now, and it wasn't happening? And like, what did you do to deal with that feeling? Oh yeah. I mean, I think we all have stuff like that. Like I'm lazy and impatient. Yes. I'm like the perfect catch, right? No, I mean, I think that the thing that I do for that is, I personally will ask for signs, right? Like I'll ask for signs. And I think if you're very specific about the signs that you ask for, that you make sure you're on the right path. Because I think there are a lot of times where we don't know that the actions we're taking, even if they are the 20% actions, we're not sure they're going to work, right? There is a level of doubt because we've never done it before. If I know how to bake a cake, I always know how to bake a cake, But when I'm starting to just make my own business and it's never something I've done before, even though I have a good plan and, other people, maybe I've done my research to be like, you know what, this is a really solid direction. Like this is probably going to yield me good results. I think that what ends up happening is when you are on the right road, there will be signs and synchronicities that will happen. Information will come to you. People, filmmakers will just appear at like a retreat that you're at and offer you a movie, things will happen when they know you're on the right path, right? So that is when, synchronicities, this is like, I think Carl Jung talks about this in psychology. There's signs from the universe that you're on the right path, right? There's things where the universe is literally conspiring to give you what you want when you're in the right mindset. You're never going to get a synchronicity when you're on that path and going,
this isn't going to work, right? But if you're someone who is ardently believing and executing and waiting patiently or trying to wait patiently, you will get signs, and you can ask for them too. You can say, look, if this is happening, I want this I want to do this today or see this. And you probably will, right? And the more you talk about it and open yourself up to that possibility, the more, and make space, right? This is why the space is so important. The universe can't throw an opportunity at you if you're already overwhelmed, right? And if it does, you're not going to notice it or want to pick it up anyway, because you're just going to be like, one more thing I got to do. So you want to have the space, and you want to keep an eye out, and things will present. Like attracts like. This is a principle of vibration. Things will come to you. I know it sounds crazy magic, because it is crazy magic. It's science, though, you guys.
Quantum crazy magic.
I'm telling you this right now. It is science. Quantum mechanics.
Yes, I love it. So, Alexis, we're beginning to wrap up here, and we want to know, like, what are the biggest, takeaways and things that we want our audience to receive from their time invested here with us today.
I want you to know you're doing too much, okay? I don't care how much or little you think you're doing, you're most likely doing too much. Because of that, you're most likely not putting yourself first. So start doing that. Start putting yourself first. Start your day by doing something as early as you can that's for you. Okay? So if that means that you're going to do mindset work, if that means you're going to journal, if that means you're going to read, if that means that you are going to spend time with your kids, whatever the thing is that you need to do for you, so that you could be like, this was a successful day for me. No matter what else happens, do that first. Then proceed with the rest of your day with a sense of focus, knowing that what's on your to-do list, most of it doesn't need to be done. Okay. So identify what the most important things are, focus on those, and then use that extra time you have to breathe or to go deeper on problem solving, or just to look for the signs around you and synchronicities. You don't have to fill every minute of your day up. Being busy does not equal being productive. In fact, busyness impairs productivity as far as I'm concerned. So do less, wish for more, visualize more, use the yin and the yang energy here, and things will come into fruition.
Awesome. So beautiful. So Alexis, how do people stay connected with you? What do you want them to do next?
Go check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/misstrenchcoat. That's probably the best place to get regular inspiration. Make sure you are subscribed to me. Other than that, the movie, we are doing a Kickstarter campaign on that. So if you guys are interested, I realize that right now live, we have not launched the Kickstarter yet, but if you
what's the movie about?
It's about me, the productivity alchemist. And eventually, if you go to productivityalchemist.com, eventually that would lead to the Kickstarter page. If you're watching this live with us, eventually the Kickstarter, it's going to be launching next month. I think this is going to be probably after, it might be over or already started by the time it hits your podcast. Yeah. So feel free to, include or not include that at the time if it's still going on.
I'm sure it'll be perfect timing.
Yeah, it probably will be, honestly, but, because that's just the way it works. But see, I said it. You can speak things into existence, you guys.
Yes.
Sometimes say things out loud more too. Speak things into existence. So definitely check out the YouTube channel, and I'm at Miss Trenchcoat all across the internet. And thecharmedshop.com is where you can sign up for any of my video master classes, which are productivity, intense, 3-hour productivity lectures by me with worksheets, and where we can actually dive deep on how to organize your day if you're someone who doesn't really feel like you are very knowledgeable about the productivity space and doesn't really feel like reading a bunch of productivity books. Trust me, I've read them for you, and I have distilled all of the important knowledge into a 3-hour lecture. So feel free to sign up for those there, and stay in touch. Follow.
Awesome. Alexis, you're a freaking superstar. I love your energy. It's just awesome, and how you're blending productivity with the the spirituality. I think that people, it's so imperative. Everyone listening, I know a lot of people out here listening are spiritual and are into these concepts of the law of attraction and harmony and frequency and stuff. And it's just so important to have both domains, to really tap into both of them. Some people think that, I'm just really good at the logical side of things. Good. Be good at that and start bridging the gap, because when you start having an incredibly logical mind as well as a spiritually, connected to the universe and possibility, it's so much more powerful. You can produce so much more results. So Alexis, thank you so much for your time today. For everyone out there listening, follow Alexis at Miss Trenchcoat. Go to thecharmedshop.com and stay connected with her. She's going to be launching this awesome documentary, the Kickstarter, and we're excited to see your future and what you're creating in the world, Alexis.
Yes. That'll be me, the alchemist, the next Oprah Tony Robbins hybrid.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you very soon, okay?
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Take care.